Hello, my name is Sam Jenks, and this is my object analysis for the television and radio class. Today, I will be talking about a interview given by Chris Carter, who is the creator of the X Files, and the X Files is one of my favorite TV shows. Um, Based on this interview, there's apparently some interesting information about the origin of the show in terms of like what kind of niche they needed it to occupy on television. It became incredibly popular. It has like 11 seasons at this point, and even had one season that came out long after the other 10, I think, because of popular demand. So it's definitely a great success. And the creator was giving an interview on this program called Archive of American Television. So already we can tell that this is an insider interview for people who are fans of the show, fans of television in general. So this is very much like a it's for people who are familiar with the ebb and flow of like sort of celebrity television and how projects are made and how people get together and sort of come up with ideas, and programs like this sort of demystify those processes to a certain degree, right? Because there's a sort of mystification of the celebrity culture and TV culture and television, film in general and media, I think, that is sort of to the benefit of the people who create it. So they don't really want to give you all of the information, but they give you some of it. So, for example, Chris Carter talks about how he was inspired by a horror film that he saw as a horror thriller film that he saw as a kid, and he realized that at the point when this series was coming out, which was, I believe, the first episode was 1993, but when he was writing it, he saw that on air there was really nothing scary, and X-Files is pretty scary. I was watching it the other day, sort of unrelated to this project. I just happened to be watching it, and I realized how much they do without breaking their rating. Like, it's a very unsettling show. The music, the cinematography, the acting, it's really, really creepy. I mean, there's not much overt violence or gore or anything like that. It's not the kind of show where they show you exactly what's happening and that's what's scary. It's more of like skirting around the lines of the truth and making you be like, what is going on here? And it's pretty creepy. And I think that's exactly what he was trying to capture, because he was talking about, Chris Carter was saying that he wanted a thriller, he wanted something scary, but the only thing that was on the network that was sort of in the same genre was a show that was about real criminal cases. So almost as a holdover from like the Dragnet era, the producers of the show of X-Files, when it came out in the first episode, they said it was based off of real events, which is like not exactly true. It's like sort of true, because Chris Carter says and talked about in the interview about how he read some FBI case files, and part of the inspiration for the show was the fact that FBI actually do investigate things like occult and alien abductions and things like that on occasion, because sometimes people just have cases that are so absurd, so hard to solve, that they don't really have any other explanation for it. So he was inspired by some real stories like that, but not exactly based on true events. Like the episodes of the show individually aren't all based on reality. But again, the producers didn't really know what to do in terms of the niche of the show. Like I said, it's maybe, this is a bit anecdotal, but it seems like a holdover from Dragnet, because one of the things that he said was that the producers they didn't know if they could have a show like this where it wasn't all wrapped up by the end of the episode. They needed there to be a conclusion. Here's who done it, here's how they did it, and now they're going to jail or whatever. That is not what happens on the X-Files at all. The whole point is that it's incredibly mysterious and unexplained, and the government is trying to hide things. So it's funny how the producers, to think that they didn't really know what they had on their hands. They of course couldn't know how big of a success the show would be. But yeah, so the interview was done for, again, it was done for Archive of American Television. I found it on YouTube, so I searched up like interviews with Chris Carter, interviews with the actors. I found this one with Chris Carter was a little bit more interesting than the one with the actors because he goes into how he, wrote the show and things like that. The purpose is to, I don't know, give some information, I guess, but mostly it's probably advertisement, right? Like the reason that they have the actors and Chris Carter, unless this was of his own volition, the reason that they have these people going on air to talk about the show is to drum up interest, right? So it is it's a primary source because it's right from his mouth. But he, it's probably for promotional material. Explain. Let's see. Hold on. I'm looking over the prompt real quick. Well, hang on. I'm gonna pause this. So the interview itself was posted on YouTube, which is where I found it in 2011. But it's probably older than that. One thing that's interesting though about this YouTube in general is that, about this video in general, is that it very much harkens back to an older era of television where people, again, you would have to actually physically have all these as part of the media getting the word out there about the show. You'd have to have your actors and things to go on all these interviews and do different talk shows, and it's part of this traditional old school type of drumming up of business, right, where there's just sort of like these social connections and interviews and talk shows, and this person knows this person, they're going to have you on so you can promote your stuff, and then maybe the network is going to have this person on this other thing, and that is not exactly how media works anymore. I mean, those things still happen. There are still talk shows, but I mean, it's a little anachronistic actually. Like new shows do not nearly as much time and money and energy is spent into having people do those live sort of advertisements. One reason is because actors, specific figures, even writers don't have as much pull as they used to. I mean, I don't know if writers had much pull in terms of getting people to watch the stuff before, but I know that in the golden age of Hollywood, and I mean, maybe even in television as well, it was like the actors and the people involved who would get people in the seats. And I don't think that's how it is for television. It's definitely not how it is for film anymore. That stuff doesn't really happen anymore. So it's much different types of marketing. So by looking at this interview, you can sort of date the show to a certain era of television just by the format that it's in. But yeah, okay, so I hope this was a good video, and thanks, Professor.